The series is available online, and you can even watch it on YouTube. Gelareh, will you give us a little briefing on each of the four parts and what it was, and then how easy or difficult was it to convince these women to participate in a project like this?
Well, I'll start with explaining with the episodes. Well, the first one is a story on fishing, and it's actually based in the island Hengam in the south of Iran, which is also an area where we felt like not many people see stories out of. So that was one of the first attractions. It's like, okay, let's leave Tehran, let's go to the provinces, and let's look at other ethnicities, other diverse characters that do exist in Iran. So, in the South, it's like a whole different setting. You have other cultural influences, different dialects. And we found a group of women that were fisherwomen. And, women always used to fish in the South. It was like one of the main source of income with their husbands, but it was never something that was regarded as a job. So then when we learned this young woman by the name of Khadija was pushing for women to actually take ownership and say, I'm a fisherwoman, I have a permit, now I can go and apply for insurance, I can go out into waters like further out, and I can actually be part of the work community. So we started following her, and we saw that, she was kind of rallying up other women. There were other documentaries made about the subject. So we also realized it was something that they were very open on discussing. So we began communication. And I say we, because we're a team here. There was myself, there was Kati Arsanjani, there was Sarah Islamiyeh, who were that played a huge role in the research phase of this in all of the stories. And they were in constant communication with the character. And, we decided that we'd go to the South and we'd stay with them and follow their daily lives, and to better understand what it takes to get a permit and why it's important. Because just at that time, also the newspaper had announced that they were going to give permits to the fisherwomen or any women that wanted to fish, especially in the South, but then it was never coming through. So that's why we wanted to understand what was the bottleneck in that. And we got, I guess, in a way, we also got lucky because we followed them to the governor, to the provincial governor in Bandar Abbas, and he wasn't there, but we did meet the head of their PR, and she basically allowed us to film her calling and asking questions of why these women weren't getting permits. But, for us, it was also this idea of showing another fabric of the society, to get into more daily lives, because the series itself is also less newsy. It's about people, and it's about, widening the perspective on Iran, especially on women. So, so the first one was more scenic than the rest because it was by the sea. And then the second one was on Zurkhone. So we went back. The second one was on motorbikes. And this was in Tehran, but also we looked at the Caspian Sea as well. And we wanted the story I had initially said about women who wanted to ride on motorbikes. They believed that there was no law against it. So why should they be shut down, or why should be stopped? So there was this big conversation that was happening on the streets. And that was, the traffic police were like, do we stop you because, you don't have a license? But then there's nowhere that says like, you can't ride. So we really wanted to focus on that and show that, women are taking that into conversation. One woman actually took a police to court for, telling her to get off the bike. And she actually won that, which is Shima, who is the main character in the piece. So it's about her and how she's a young student. She's a young actress. And, it's very hard to get by during those times in Tehran. So she had no means but to get on a motorbike, and she wanted to show that it was possible. But then we also looked at other situations. We traveled to the north. We looked at an elder woman who her husband had passed away and she had to go to the rice fields, and that's where she worked. And the only access she had was to ride a motorbike, but she couldn't, because she was older, she couldn't ride a motorbike. So she rode a tricycle, not a tricycle, but like the sort of old school, the ones it's like, which movie had it? But so it was like, the other women had actually come about and they made it for her. And this inspired other women, especially her daughter, to ride motorbikes. So it kind of showed other generations that it's possible, but it also made it more acceptable among the men, because you would see it happen. And so the men were like, okay, well, she's doing it for work purposes, so I guess it's okay. But then that also influenced other generations. And we see that happening. So then you see it in Tehran, if you see it up in the north, and so on. And then for the third part, which was on Zurkhone, which has been a big discussion, which is about women entering the pit, where they call it the strongmen, or the pahlavans, the warriors, would go and they would train. It's because in the pit, in the circle pit, there's the music that's played with the tabla. It's somewhat religious. The certain groups of people would be against women being in the pit. But then the argument was, well, if women can pray, why can they not be in the pit actually performing this ritual, which is very sacred? So we found a woman activist in Tehran who has been pushing for this, but we also found a very traditional woman in the south of Tehran who, she's very religious. And she says, as a religious woman, I feel it's the only sport I can actually play. I feel it's close to my heart. It's Iranian, it's national. So her argument was like, why are we not allowed as religious women and individuals? Why can't we also be amongst this? And this created an interesting conversation, and it also looked at a broader scope of this sort of argument of women not being allowed to do something. And then for the fourth one, it was about these two best friends that were mechanics, and they wanted to open up a mechanics shop. And well, obviously the first part of all of this is that you get the confrontation from a more of a patriarchal society, but at the same time, it's going through the steps of getting the permit. And they were able actually to pass the exam. They went for vocational training. They're still trying to pass another exam, but they did open up a small shop where you see it in the series, where they are helping. They have customers, and the more important thing is that they are getting support, and you're seeing other groups, neighbors, and the community come together and say, you know what, she did a really great job with my car, so why do we have to stop this?
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. Everybody should check these series out. It's really fantastic because, as Gelareh pointed out, to me, it shows the grassroots change happening in Iran at like a society level among people and women. And there were quite a bit number of men in the series who were supporting the women in their strive for getting their rights and what they wanted to do. And there was one man who said, the trainer in Zurkhone, who said, yeah, I want her to succeed because my daughter is interested in this, and I want her to, when she grows up, to have a role model and have representation. And that's something that's definitely very relatable to all of us outside of Iran too, of non-white women, having representation, having little girls have role models to look up to.